Welcome to the recap of Biloxi Blues, 1988, a coming-of-age dramedy based on a set during World War II. Our story opens with a group of young recruits heading by train to boot camp in Biloxi. Among them is Eugene Morris Jerome, a wide-eyed 20-year-old writer in the making. Eugene, played by Matthew Broderick, serves as both the protagonist and narrator, often breaking the fourth wall to share his humorous and insightful thoughts. He's observant, a bit awkward, and certainly unsure about the war he's being prepared to fight. Eugene has a dream. He wants to survive the war and become a writer. He also wants to experience life in ways he hasn't yet. Chief among those is losing his virginity, but he's also curious about love, friendships, and the complexities of adulthood. Once the recruits arrive in Biloxi, they're introduced to the central figure of their boot camp experience, Sergeant Merwin Toomey. Played by Christopher Walken, Toomey is a strict, eccentric drill sergeant who immediately sets the tone with his no-nonsense attitude and oddball quirks. He's a man both feared and respected by the recruits, and much of the film's tension comes from the dynamics between Toomey and the young men under his command. From the start, Eugene and the other recruits realize that boot camp will test more than just their physical endurance. Sergeant Toomey is known for his psychological games, using mind tricks and power plays to break them down. One of his tactics involves forcing the men to stay awake for hours, perform grueling drills, and adhere to his bizarre sense of order and control. Among Eugene's fellow recruits are some colorful characters, each dealing with the challenges of military life in their own way. There's Arnold Epstein, a sensitive and intellectual recruit who clashes with Toomey's authoritarian style. Epstein refuses to bend to Toomey's bullying, which makes him a target, but also earns him Eugene's respect. Epstein is a central figure in the story, as his rebellion against Toomey becomes one of the core conflicts of the film. We also meet Witkowski, a brash and overconfident recruit, and Hennessy, who is more laid-back and a bit mysterious. Carney, a soft-spoken guy with musical aspirations, and Selfridge, a jokester who tries to keep spirits high, round out the group. Together, they form a unit that's both dysfunctional and oddly supportive as they navigate the harsh realities of Army life. The first act of the film focuses on their adjustment to the camp's punishing routine. The recruits endure endless push-ups, forced marches, and strict military discipline. Eugene, always the observer, writes about his experiences in a journal, documenting everything from his fear of Toomey to his desire to lose his virginity before heading into battle. His humor and inner monologue offer a lighter perspective on the grimness of their situation. The heart of the story, however, lies in the personal growth of each character. Eugene, in particular, is evolving from a naive boy into a more self-aware young man. His worldview is challenged by the harshness of the camp, the unpredictable behavior of his fellow soldiers, and the looming prospect of war. One of the major turning points in the film comes when Sergeant Toomey singles out Epstein, subjecting him to brutal tasks as punishment for his nonconformity. In one memorable scene, Epstein is forced to clean the latrines with a toothbrush, a humiliating ordeal meant to break his spirit. But Epstein refuses to back down, and his defiance becomes a symbol of resilience for the group. Even Eugene, who is more of a passive observer, begins to question his own willingness to go along with the status quo. As the story progresses, Eugene's dream of losing his virginity becomes a subplot. His fellow recruits tease him about his inexperience, and in a moment of camaraderie, they visit a local brothel. Eugene is nervous and uncertain, but his encounter with a kind-hearted prostitute named Rowena, played by Park Overall, is more tender than expected. She offers him advice and a gentle introduction to intimacy, and the experience leaves Eugene feeling both exhilarated and more confused about love and sex than before. It's a sweet, awkward moment that underscores Eugene's transition from boyhood to adulthood. Another key relationship in the film is between Eugene and Daisy, a local girl he meets at a USO dance. Daisy is the opposite of Rowena, innocent, kind, and someone Eugene sees as the ideal version of love. Their connection is brief but meaningful. Through Daisy, Eugene experiences the innocence of first love. But like everything else in his life at the moment, it's fleeting and complicated by the realities of war. Daisy represents the path not taken, a glimpse of normal life that Eugene fears he may never have due to the uncertainty of the war. Meanwhile, tensions continue to rise between Epstein and Sergeant Toomey. In a climactic scene, Toomey challenges Epstein to a physical confrontation, hoping to break him once and for all. But Epstein, ever defiant, refuses to fight. Instead, he confronts Toomey with words, exposing the sergeant's weaknesses and challenging his authority in a way that no one else dares to. Toomey, who has his own demons, is visibly shaken, and the scene highlights the psychological toll that military life can take on both the recruits and their superiors. As Eugene's journey into adulthood continues, the transition from boot camp to deployment looms large. The young men who started as strangers have now become a tight-knit group. Despite their differences, shared hardship has bonded them together. There's a moment where Eugene observes how much they've all changed, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally. Their experiences under Toomey's strict rule have shaped them into soldiers, but also into men who are beginning to understand the weight of their choices and the uncertain future that lies ahead. The scenes shift between moments of levity and introspection. Eugene finds solace in his journal, constantly reflecting on the surreal nature of their lives in Biloxi. He writes about the oddities of military life, the boredom, the drills, and the friendships, but the looming reality of war is never far from his mind. Even in the moments when the group is joking around, there's an underlying tension that hints at the danger awaiting them. One of the film's key moments comes when Sergeant Toomey reveals a more vulnerable side. In a private conversation with Eugene, Toomey opens up about his own struggles, the pressures he faces, and the reasons behind his harsh treatment of the recruits. He confesses that his tough exterior is a facade, one that he has to maintain to survive in his role. It's a brief, humanizing moment for Toomey, a man who has been depicted as the primary antagonist. This moment serves to remind the audience that even those in power are not immune to the challenges and emotional toll of military life. As boot camp nears its end, the group faces one last test, and it's not just a physical challenge. Toomey orchestrates a psychological game that pushes the recruits to their limits. The recruits are divided into groups and told that they must decide amongst themselves who would die in a hypothetical combat situation. It's a cruel exercise meant to force them to confront the harsh reality of war, where life and death decisions must be made. The group debates and tensions flare as each recruit reacts to the exercise differently. In the end, it's Eugene who speaks up, revealing a depth of understanding that has been growing throughout the film. He argues that none of them should die, challenging the idea that such decisions can be made so easily. This final test solidifies the bond between the recruits, and even Toomey seems to have a grudging respect for them by the end. Despite the torment they endured, they survived, both physically and mentally, and they've come out stronger on the other side. As they prepare to leave Biloxi and head into the unknown, Eugene reflects on the nature of courage and what it means to face fear. He's learned that bravery isn't just about fighting on the battlefield, it's about standing up for yourself, your friends, and your values, even when it's difficult. The film ends with Eugene narrating the fates of his fellow soldiers. He recounts what happens to each of them after boot camp, offering a glimpse into the impact that their time in Biloxi had on their futures. Some go on to fight in the war, some don't make it back, and others, like Eugene, find themselves changed in ways they couldn't have anticipated. Eugene himself survives the war, and as he predicted, he becomes a writer, chronicling the strange and pivotal moments of his life. In his final monologue, Eugene acknowledges the complexity of the human experience. He reflects on the absurdity of war, the friendships that formed under extreme circumstances, and the ways in which their time in Biloxi shaped their futures. Through it all, Eugene remains hopeful, aware that while life is unpredictable and often harsh, it is also filled with moments of beauty, humor, and connection. The last shot lingers on Eugene, journal in hand, as he walks away from the camp. He's a man now, ready to face whatever comes next, armed with the knowledge that he has the strength to endure and the heart to remain true to himself.